Hello everybody, this is Kevin Shortell with the MWMfund. One of the questions we're always asked is there enough non-performing and performing note inventory left? And the answer is a resounding yes. Not only is there enough inventory, but it looks like future inventory is on the way. So I put together a little presentation here for you called Don't Call Them Subprime. Now, if you remember, subprime mortgages were the first loans to go bad in the last crash in the 2000s. Subprime loans. That's why the lending industry stays away from that term. They don't like to hear the word subprime loans anymore. So they do have something called non-qualified loans, which look remarkably similar to subprime loans, but they just call them a slightly different name. Now, you're going to have proponents say, no, but these loans are different because there's a little higher standard involved. Other people are going to argue it's the same thing in a different outfit, just a different name for what they have. So here's what's happening in the industry today, as it has always happened. What goes on behind the scenes when loans are created, they're packaged and sold as bonds. So this article came out in Bloomberg November 4th, and it says risky mortgage bonds are back and delinquencies are piling up. Very interesting headline there from Bloomberg. Risky mortgage bonds. Well, what are risky mortgage bonds? These are mortgage bonds that were compiled, put together by large pools of non-qualified loans. Okay, not qualified loans. These are non-qualified loans that they're packaging up and selling to investors. Now, in theory, that the investors are taking more risk on these, they're also going to get a higher reward. And you can see there that they are being lured, to use their words, by bonds paying 5% coupon. So you can buy a package, percentage of these bonds, get a 5% return on your money, which is a lot better than other bonds like treasury bonds where you're making maybe 1% on your money, and that's backed by the federal government. These are backed by the performance of those loans. So, is there risk involved with these, and what does this have to do with inventory? So subprime mortgage-backed bonds, maybe dead in America more than a decade. They triggered the global financial crisis, everything else. So it goes on to say it's called non-qualified mortgages. Basically a loan granted to borrowers whose checkered financial records made them ineligible for conventional mortgages. Lenders have bundled more than $18 billion worth of these loans this year alone. Now here's what's really amazing in this. That is a 44% increase from 2018. That's not a small increase. That is a massive amount of increase. So yeah, they're back, baby, in a big way, but the delinquencies on these non-qualified loans are starting to show signs, and even early loans, we're talking loans that are no more than 90 days old, are starting to show problems with these delinquencies here. So this will really put a pin on this. Look at the growth in this market, again, strictly for non-qualified mortgages. In 2015, hardly a blip on the radar screen, and now all the way up to 20 billion. It would not shock me at all if this goes up to 40 billion next year. Why? Obviously the demand is there. The investors are attracted to these bonds because they can make a higher return in the bond market than other places right now, and they're willing to take that risk. And Wall Street is by far willing to supply what they are looking for. So these non-qualified borrowers could be the first ones that start the whole crash all over again. Now, I'm not saying that is about to happen, because even 40 billion, if that's what happens next year, even 40 billion is a mere drop in the bucket of the trillion that we had before the crash of last time. But it is enough to start looking at and going, oh boy, what is going to likely happen here? So these borrowers oftentimes are people who don't have a steady income. And many times that can be small business owners. So small business owners, they maximize their tax returns to show the, a lower income that they have to pay taxes on and everything else. So a lot of times small business owners won't qualify for conventional loans because of that. But they will qualify for these non-qualified loans. So that's where a lot of these folks are coming from. They don't have the bank statements and everything else, the income statements that would get them qualified, and this is the alternative. So is there more risk though? Yes, there is. It goes on to say making non-qualified mortgages can be legally riskier for lenders. If a borrower misses payments and it turns out they shouldn't have received the loan in the first place, they can sue the lender or even the securitization trust trust that owns that loan. That is very, very important because the writing is already on the wall here. What's going to happen in the next round of foreclosures, if that indeed starts to happen, is you're going to see people who got these non-qualified loans who are now delinquent borrowers. They're going to lawyer up, and their lawyers are going to look at the paperwork and say, did they do everything right? Because if it turns out that they're missing statements or didn't verify certain income, the lawyer's going to say, well, look, you shouldn't have got this loan in the first place. Let's go ahead and sue that lender or even the securitization trust that owns that note. That's why at the MWMfund, when we convert land contracts, we're always making sure it's done in full compliance, Dodd-Frank compliance. You should do the same thing as a note investor. If you're buying individual notes outside of the fund, absolutely make sure that those notes are in compliance. If you're creating notes and everything else, we do that in-house as well because we are aware of what could potentially happen for these types of loans, because you'll see qualified mortgages have more legal protections from lenders and bondholders. So the bottom line is do things right. Take the extra time, takes the extra effort and expense to make sure that these loans are in compliancy. So later on, if the economy changes, we're not in trouble. So we're doing that at our fund. You can be assured of that, and you also need to look at that if you are buying notes outside of the buying through the fund. So the other thing that happens, and this is kind of human nature, as we saw the rapid appreciation in housing prices going up, people who qualify for loans and even non-qualified loans are going to get the maximum loan they could possibly get. I mean, that's just human nature. They're seeing property values go up and just say, well, let's get the biggest loan we can possibly get, and hopefully the house goes up in value and we have equity down the line. All well and good until something happens to that person's income, whether it's a small business person or whether it's a self-employed a person or a person who has seasonal income, whatever it is. If their income changes, if the economy changes, they're going to be the first ones that default on these types of loans because they got the max that they could possibly get, and it's probably above what should be done on these non-qualified loans as it comes to debt to income ratios. So we're keeping an eye on it. You should keep an eye on it. Hope you enjoyed the information. Look forward to putting together another blog for you soon.